the thing about the concept of going to a church is the benefits and the advantages and the disadvantages don't get looked at in the way they should. So you have the group of people that they don't go to a church or like watch it online, that sort of thing. I mean, they do that, but they don't go in. They don't go into the building. And there's the thing. I'm saying church as in reference to a church building, but a church building is not a church because that's the thing. It's just a building. Without the people, it's just building. It's not church building because there's no one in it. But when you have people in it, it's church building. So when you say a church, you're not talking about the building, you're talking about the people inside the building. And what comes along with that is Judases. And then that has people leaving a church because there are so many Judases in a church. And I mean, the Bible refers to two Judases, so this is the Judas Iscariot or Iscariot, how that be pronounced? Either way, you can, what I said, you can then, when you see the verse, because it specifies that one compared to the other Judas, Judas brother James, I believe. But yeah, anyways, the church has many Judases, and that's the reason so many people leave a church. Although when they do that, they miss out on the benefits of the church, because the church does provide a spiritual protection that is not available anywhere but a congregation of people that are in fellowship for Christ. So when you have a large group of people together, because the building has nothing to do with it, it's the fact you have that many Christians in one location at one time, joined in some kind of unity in worship, fellowship, that sort of thing. It's not, I mean, that's why the devil will never miss a day of church, because that's dangerous to him. That many Christians, flawed and all, together. I mean, even with the Judases in there. And the thing about that is, when you think that you're the only one that notices that the church is full of Judases, well, you're mistaken, because even the pastor knows there's Judases in his church. It's not, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, there's going to be Judases there. And, I mean, that goes to the thing about saying that the church is full of snakes, the church is full of people you cannot trust, because it is full of Judases. But when you leave it at, it's a misrepresentation of a church building or a group of Christians when you just take it as, so all you need is 4 Judases to make a mess. I mean, there's a verse that says, one sinner destroyeth much good, and there's that's half of it. The other half is in the beginning, but either way, that one. And that's what Judas does. That's what a Judas does. They're the one sinner that destroys much good, because it's not necessarily the part about being a sinner, it's the part about there's something very not trustworthy there, very not good. Not the oh, we forgive it sort, but the type that you really just cannot trust them. And it does, and if you're gonna be open to the public to enter your church, with whatever obvious scenarios of someone not being allowed in, there will then you're going to have Judases in your church. And, I mean, even witches, warlocks, that sort of thing, they'll show up too and be cursing you while you're preaching or while you're praising. And there's the thing about the herd mentality. The problem with Judas is, or I mean, the problem that usually happens with the church is the Judases have a habit of they go right into the flock. They have the herd mentality. When you go to a church and you find someone with a herd mentality, they most likely are a Judas because they're not free thinking. They're not thinking in accordance with, they read the Bible, they abide by the Bible. They're in accordance with getting into a high position of power in the church and destroying everything and making it to where, okay, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, because if you do, people are going to hear the truth. And we can't have them hearing the truth because we got to have them in this little bubble where it's like the church goes up, they go down. The Judases go up, the Christians go down. And that's the problem when you start allowing Judases into your hierarchy. No one wants to go to your church because you do not have godly people, or because you've allowed snakes into your church hierarchy. And when that happens, the whole thing falls. Because just like Judas was the downfall of Jesus, although deliberately, I mean, it's not like he couldn't, okay, you got to go. He could have done that, but there was a necessity in having a Judas. So, but I mean, even at that, there were times where Jesus would be talking, or at least the one time where Jesus was talking and Judas was somewhere else. So he didn't discuss what was going on with Judas there. So if you know you have a Judas, well, don't give them power because they definitely will abuse it. And they'll abuse it in subtle ways. Like, okay, they say they're going to go and call somebody, or they say they're going to do something for somebody, and then they don't do it. And they act like, oh, well, that was an accident. It wasn't. It was deliberate because, well, they have evil in them. Not necessarily that they are evil. I mean, the original Judas even, or, because I mean, going back to Satan can't repent. He is evil now. But the Judas that hung himself, he could have repented. He just didn't believe Jesus to the extent that he would have to, or more like, he just didn't believe Jesus. Because if he had believed Jesus, that he is the Son of God, that he is this, that he is that, he could have gone to heaven. But, or not necessarily the heaven thing, but he could have, well, yeah, he could have been forgiven, and if you're forgiven, then you can go to heaven. So that sort of thing. Because it's an oxymoron to say you're forgiven and you're going to hell. If you're forgiven by Christ, you're going to heaven automatically because you've accepted Christ. The only way to be forgiven by Christ is to accept Christ, and in order to accept Christ, you cannot have hate in your heart, even for Judases. You can hate what a Judas does, but if you hate the person that is not pure evil, the actions may be pure evil, but they aren't, and then when you start hating them, well, that's a mess. And it just ends up hurting you. And I mean, that's like the thing about people not going to a church building on Sunday, which it's like I've more often than not, I've not gone to a Sunday service. However, I realize there's more to it. It's not as simple as, okay, the place is full of snakes, not going there. That's not in tune enough with the situation. I mean, there's that thing about one bad part of an apple rots the whole thing, and when you apply that to a church, well, then there is no good church, because every church has a Judas, especially, and more Judases show up when the church gets bigger. So the bigger the church, the more Judases there are. And maybe there's an extent of this Judas is like this bad, and then this Judas is like this bad. Maybe something to that effect. But yeah, I'm talking about the anti-church way and the church way and how that relates, or whatever wisdom to be conveyed on that. And I may have already said it without recording, but I'll say it again. Holy Ghost, lead these words, and thank you for doing so, because that's the thing. If God speaks through me, I've got nothing to be concerned about. And if it's just, well, I mean, I want what I say to matter. I want what I say to be of God, because if it's not of God, what's the point? So yeah, the dynamics of that, the church, and then the anti-church, and yeah. So the church that I usually go to, pastor gets it right 95% of the time. That's not the case with every church. So if the church that you've been going to, the pastor gets it right like 10% of the time, well then that's not good. So it doesn't matter that they claim that. Well, I mean, it's essentially, it goes like this. Someone may claim their building is a church building, and it actually be a Satanist assembly. It may be more atheist than Christian, that sort of thing. And I'm not saying atheist and Satanist are the same thing. I'm saying they're different things, but neither one is good for a church environment. I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed in a church, but I am saying if the church mentality is atheist, that's direct contradiction. If the church mentality is Satanist, well, that's direct contradiction. And it's if you wanted to get evil about things, there you go. I mean, an atheist may be misled, but a Satanist is so misled that they actually are worshiping evil versus just more of an indifferent temperament toward things. So yeah, if you have a God-fearing church that maybe they don't say a few things they should say, or maybe they say a few. Yeah, that's the thing. If you have a pastor that is getting it 90% right, and he's usually the one up there talking, that's a good church. Because the shepherd is the one who's leading the flock. And although you'll have people with a herd mentality that are really excluding people that should not be excluded, like people wearing hats, people with long hair, people with piercings, people with tattoos, they should be allowed in your church. Because once you start excluding them, well, your outfit's silly. You're not allowed in my church. That's stupid. I mean, obvious. There's the obvious thing. Don't show up to the church naked. Sure, that's a good one. Because I mean, once you start allowing that in there, it's becoming a depraved environment. But piercings, that's not going to make your church depraved. I mean, if earrings are allowed, as much as I don't like the idea of someone sticking something through their nose like that, making it difficult to sneeze and all, in theory anyways, I haven't asked, so. Or like a lip ring, or, yeah, not my thing, but just because it's not my thing, that doesn't mean you're not allowed in the church, or that doesn't mean you shouldn't be allowed in church. I mean, even if someone has a tattoo, so what? I mean, if God can ask a seer to color their hair pink to stand out, Why can't someone have their hair be rainbows, orange, purple? That's, I mean, essentially, well, if the church gets love right, then, well, God is love. And a church that claims to be God-fearing, but will not allow people in that wear hats, that's not a God-fearing church. That's a man-fearing church. It's not right. It's not okay. I mean, that's like I go to into a church, short hair, no hat. Yeah, everybody's all nice to me then, but what about when I'm wearing a hat? What about when it's winter and I'm going in there with hair like Jesus? Well, then the dynamic changes slightly, because there are Judases in the church, and the Judases have a herd mentality. They think that they can exclude people because they don't fit the demographic. But that's contradicting, because the demographic of a Christian is a very broad thing. That doesn't mean that the teachings should be so broad that the meaning's lost, but it does mean that there are many different people, and sure, a lot of them have something going on that, although it's not okay, at the same time, it's not. Jesus wouldn't hate them, so why should you? I mean, Jesus would hate the things they do, because Jesus isn't going to love sin. That's an oxymoron. That's a stupid thing. Yeah. I mean, I've got a Bible in front of me, and I'm just talking about that. Thinking that, well, if I'm going to be talking about church and not going to church, that sort of thing, I ought to have the Bible in front of me. So, yeah. Then I do. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? That brings some sorrow to me, which it should. I mean, you had to die, so dying isn't exactly a enjoyable pastime. Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. I mean, even showing compassion to devils. And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding. And all the devils besought him, saying, Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave, and the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine. And the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000, and were cloaked in the sea, and were choked in the sea. And they that fed the swine fled and told it in the city and in the country. And they went out to see what it was that was done. Yeah, we keep going, I suppose. And they came to Jesus, and see him that was possessed with the devil, and had the legion, sitting and clothed, and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And they that saw it told them how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. And they began to pray him to depart out of their coasts. And when he was come into the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. Howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but saith unto him, Go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for them, and hath had compassion on thee. Compassion. A church without compassion isn't a church. Just a congregation of fools. Because if your congregation doesn't have God as if you're going to say you're a Christian, if you're going to say you're a fellowship building of Christians, well, where's your compassion at? Where's your compassion for the guys and girls wearing hats, for the people with piercings, for the people with tattoos? I mean, you'll allow someone in there with a walker, someone who's got they can't move. You'll allow someone who is injured by medical things, but you won't allow someone who is injured by emotional things, or just wants to be artistic. I mean, church isn't a place for a bikini or a dude in swim trunks, but to say it's not a place for a hat, that's a bit superficial. I'm not saying that. Well, it's the balancing thing. What I am saying is, if love is not your master, then God is not your master. Because God is love. So therefore, if you do not serve love above all things, you do not serve God above all things. Because God is love. And by contradicting love, you contradict God. And by contradicting God, you're not His. He's not yours. You rejected Him. When you reject love, or rather when you reject the opportunity to be loving, you reject God.